to promote awareness among space and STEM among space enthusiasts. Let us welcome our today's guest, Dr. Sayary. He is a researcher, an assistant professor, and an award-winning architect with a passion for space architecture. He has won over 40 prizes and awards in the last 20 years and given several TV interviews in at least 7 different countries. His work has expanded from features in television such as Discovery Channel UK and many others, magazine and websites regarding sophisticated and high-end architecture with the likes of Wired magazine and even more. His work has also been appreciated by many important exhibitions all around the world, prominently in NASA Johnson Space Center, France, and even in the space sector of the United Nations held in multiple countries. Sir has also been invited as a guest speaker to several conferences such as TED Talks, Forbes, etc., and has also published several scientific papers in reputable international conferences. He is also a jury member for various design competitions and has currently given us fantastic insights to Luna and Martian Oasis projects. Thank you, sir, for coming to our webinar. Over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Garima, for the introduction, and just let me take it from here, and I'll start by sharing my screen.
All right.
Yeah, let's go. Let's start. So today I'll be presenting a line of research and a life journey as well. Both are associated with each other, so it's really confusing a little bit to start with the title of presentation. This presentation had taken so much titles like biosphere, like creating an extraterrestrial ecosystems, importing Mother Earth to outer environments, and so much. They are all just focusing about one notion, which is the space oasis or building a human habitat outside Earth. So it is all about space architecture and the new opportunities that will be associated with our expanding outside the boundaries of our Earth. So let me just start with a very nice quote by Saint Seraphim of Sarov. This guy has just quoted saying that drink water from the spring where horses drink. The horse will never drink bad water. Lay your bed where the cat sleeps, as she loves calm place. Eat the fruit that has been touched by worm. It's always looking for ripe fruit. Plant the tree where the mole digs, because that is the fertile ground. So that is a very important reflection that we are just a part of the ecosystem. We are not the center of the ecosystem. We are not really the most important creature in the ecosystem, but we integrate with the ecosystem. So we have to respect the ecosystem and respect all various life forms and start learning from nature, start appreciating and considering nature as a mentor. So what is the biosphere? The biosphere, i.e. Earth, it's the regions, it's defined as the regions of the surface and atmosphere of the Earth or another planet maybe in the future, who knows, occupied by living organisms under a very delicate equilibrium, under a very high balance. So damaging one part of the biosphere might cause a chain reaction that might really damage all of the biosphere. So the concept of the biosphere, it's the place where the flora and fauna exist, and we are part of all of this system. It is the whole great ecosystem. So biosphere 1 is known as the Earth, but also there is artificial biospheres, and there is a very important project that is located in Oracle, Arizona. It's called Biosphere 2. It's an artificial structure that had learned that so much about enclosing a self-contained ecosystem or sub-ecosystems. So it contains a mini ocean, a tropical main forest, desert, wetland, and grassland, and it is a very important scientific piece that teaches us how to really make this equilibrium or balance. My presentation today will be about Biosphere 3, something outside Earth. Also, let me quote or just mention the quote of Le Corbusier. Le Corbusier, the father of the modern architecture. He said, you know, it is always life that is right and architect who is wrong. So that all just pours in one direction, that we have to be part of the system, the ecosystem. We are part of nature. We have to start learning from nature and just eliminate our ego-centric and replace it by the eco-centric. So why space architecture? Why space colonization? Why are we thinking about exploration? There are many, Yeah, here we go. So there are many reasons that makes us really believe in the importance of space colonization. One of the scientific opinions is the extinction level event. The scientists do believe that we have so many various reasons, according to science, that the old list here that I am carrying or I'm showing is just 16 different existential risks. 10 of them are anthropogenic, which is man-made, and 6 only of them are non-anthropogenic, which is natural causes. All of these causes can cause our total extinction. But you know something that is much more interesting and terrifying at the same time. What I mean, it's scary that this list is growing. And up till now, it had just grew from 16 to 22 main causes, and it's just still growing on and on. So it is something that have to be taken into consideration. One of these scientists who really called upon the importance of this, considering the extinction level event, it was Stephen Hawking, the modern Einstein, the Einstein of our era. He just passed away years ago. He said, I don't think that the human race will survive the next 1,000 years. And before his passing away, before his death, he just replaced 1,000 years by a couple of 100 years. So also it is decreasing. It's expected that we might really make any kind of mistake or fault that might end the life that we know on Earth. So unless we spread into space, there are too many accidents that can befall life on a single planet. But I'm optimist. We will reach out to the stars. And this is a very important reason, and maybe that was the main motive that we have thought about growing outside Earth. But also, it is not only the dystopian future that we have to present. There are also opportunities in space. And one of the opportunities is one that's quoted by Elon Musk when he said that I want to make humans a multiplanetary species. This is a high aspiration, a dream that could come true. And you know something, as Job Steve said, those crazy people who are the really one who change the course of human history. And while we are maybe considering that this might be an extreme dream, but someday it might be a scientific reality. And also money and economy. Money and economy is one of the main catalysts and main motives maybe that could push us to start exploring space. One of the main entrepreneurs that really can see that there's opportunity in space is Jeff Bezos. He said, what I want to achieve with the Blue Origin is to build a heavy lifting infrastructure that allows for the kind of dynamic entrepreneurial explosion of thousands of companies in space. So this is another opportunity. And you know, some economists and some scientists may go further more to finding new capitalism in space and converting it into the fifth industrial revolution. And just let's don't forget fun. Fun is also part of our nature. Life is not always about work. We have to take some days, some time for ourselves. And of course, we can't talk about tourism without mentioning Richard Branson, the founder of Virgin Galactic. His Virgin Galactic leadership expects millions of space tourists that will want to fly in the next decade, and he had already started by having zero gravity tourism. But all of that reasons are not only enough. I was just talking about the fun opportunities or the Virgin Galactic leadership that will be expecting millions of space tourists that will want to fly in the next decade. And Richard Branson had already succeeded in making the first zero gravity kind of tourism. But aside from all of that point of views, also we have to think about saving our ecosystem, to think about Earth. We can just not think to abandon Earth and leave everything behind. It is our ancient mother that we have just grew and originated, and all kind of life forms and all kind of life that we know are on Earth. So yeah, there are a lot of threats really that is threatening our existence on Earth. But I do also believe that the space technology would be the solution. So my own point of view that really motivates me, and it is the driving force that really moves me to move forward in this kind of research, that we have to develop and learn space technology. We will need it someday on Earth. I have a very known quote that I keep saying to my students. If we have the science and technology to terraform Mars, which is a scientific theory, converting Mars planet from a deserted planet to an Earth-like planet, it will be the same science that could be applied and used to fight climate change, and maybe it will be much more advanced than our needs. So my design manifesto could be summarized in 3 steps. I call it the community-centered design, and it is a development or an alternative of the human-centered design. I start always by digging deep in the old knowledge of our ancestors and our culture on Earth, and the science accumulated through thousands of years to capture hidden values and intangible strengths of our human legacy. So that is something from the past. But we cannot just copycat the past as it is. We have new technologies. So experimenting and developing those values and strengths using the cutting edge technologies to create a state of art design that carries the spirit of the past, not in its shape or form, but in its experience. So that is the present phase. So I'm taking from the past and rethinking and redefining using the present technology. And also it is to close the cycle, we have to think about the future. So the third and last part is documenting those experiments that I'll be presenting today to pass our own traditional system knowledge developed to the future generations. And that might be through the conferences, journals, even the presentation like the one that we are conducting today. Also, let me just make a small hint that all of the presented projects are based on existing technologies and or near future technologies. So there is no science fiction in what I am talking about today or presenting today. Also, please be noted that all of the presented projects were internationally awarded and reviewed by space experts and astronauts. Our first project today is Project Oasis or the Lunar Oasis. So what are the driving forces behind this project? What is the process of design that led to this project? As I have mentioned earlier from the manifesto, the 3 Steps Manifesto, starting from Earth, starting from our own culture, the first kind of settlement. And I would like to stress about using the term settlement and not colonization. Yeah, I know that there's the well-known past abbreviation might be the space colonization, but colonization might imply depleting most of our resources and exhausting the new environment. But settlement, it is about growing and nourishing the new environment. So I'll be replacing the word of space colonization by space settlements, or maybe creating a new ecosystem, a new biosphere. So if we would like to think about biosphere, we have to return to our original biosphere. The first life form was the water that had founded all kind of flora and fauna around it, so we can grow our plants. And then when it is found by a human settler that would like to start a new kind of maybe a settlement and start domesticating the plants and making farms and domesticating animals and creating a small village that will turn to just a few years into a settlement, and few decades it might also reach to the level of a civilization. So that was our existence, and that was the story of our human race that I would like to replicate on a new environment. But also about the system or the biomimicry. Biomimicry definition is about emulation of the models or systems or elements of nature for the purpose of solving complex space architectural challenges using parametric digital strategies, which is my specialty, the computational design. But also our human psychology. It is part also of our knowledge system that we cannot ignore. We are human beings, we are smart creatures. So the circle implies a lot of notions. It is hardwired in our brain since the dawn of civilization. The circle was also the sense of community. It reflects the sense of community, the sense of family, the sense of belonging. When the ancient tribes gathered around the fire or making folkloric dances, they were always in a form of a circle. Even in our notions today and our words, we use the circle of trust, the circle of friends, the circle of family. So the circular formation is also something that we do understand, that it's about unity and infinity. And that was the driving forces that shaped the Oasis project. But also we have another piece, which is nature, the anthropization. Anthropization is the conversion of open spaces, and we used anciently this technique in converting open spaces or landscape and natural environments into a process that could be utilized. So if we'd like to farm or start cultivating mountains, we have to start contouring them as the picture shown. And learning from one of the tiniest creatures on Earth, building an habitat for an extreme environment, the ant colonies. The ant colonies, one of the most sophisticated and complicated kind of habitation system that can resist all kind of floods, existential risks, and grow perfectly and health eggs, and the ant trace and store food and can resist all kind of changes. So by understanding and studying the infrastructure of this kind of colonization created by, and it is also an important lesson that is learned from nature. But we also have to take into consideration the modern technology, the contemporary research. So back to NASA, I have found one of the most interesting papers and studies conducted by Mark Cohen. Mr. Mark Cohen was the NASA chief architect back in 2009. His published paper was about creating a moon habitation system, and he had just indicating precisely and accurately all kind of needs that we will need to start building a colonization. So combining all of those factors together, and by completing the research, one of the first shelters that the human known from the Paleolithic age was the cave. The cave sheltered us from all kind of harsh environmental parameters, including even predators, maybe the extreme temperatures. And by conducting a further and furthermore the research, I found another interesting paper uh, conducted by Purdue University. It's about the lunar lava caves. And that was one of the most important driving forces that led NASA in 2015, as I remember, in recommending that it is better for us to start building our habitation system under a lunar cave. Due to the low gravity of the moon surface, which is 16% of the gravity of Earth, it led to a very high and huge geological formations. So you can find large and majestic and just massive kind of caves that you cannot find on Earth. That is due to the low gravity. But on Earth, due to the high gravity, this kind of structures may collapse easily. So I define myself as a scientist. I'm a scientist and architect. I use science to produce architecture, and once I produce this architecture, I analyze it and convert it into a scientific paper again, so it is also a closed cycle. So I do not claim that I find all kind of science that is built in this project. I take science from various places and formulate it into an architectural solution, and that is the core of the human culture and legacy, taking from others and delivering to the future generations. So gathering all of this information, I start building my own cave based on the data that I have found it. And my chosen site was Philalis Crater. It is something near to the North Pole. According to the NASA recommendation, you can find high reserves of frozen water. And by having a shelter and frozen water, so most of our problems to start the habitation system were solved. So the Philalis Crater lava tube cave, this is of course an imaginary construction in 3D based on all of the data that I have just researched. And this is a sectional perspective just showing 4 colonies due to the massive volume could be placed, and connecting them with one urban corridor or circulation spine. About our human legacy, something that we have learned from our ancient civilization is documenting what we have done. So by reading more and more in the anthropology, which is the science of the human race and its ancestors and families and races, I have found that the colonization in the human colonization passed through 4 different phases. The first phase, which is phase 1, like Columbus just when found America, he just stuck the flag and returned back to his mother Earth. And that phase is just declaring about finding a new Earth or a new ground. And we have already passed this phase through Apollo Mission 11 in 1969. We just, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin has stuck the American flag on the lunar surface and just bounced back. And we have conducted 6 different missions until the last one in 1972. The second phase of colonization, according to anthropology, is just temporary immigrants that might move to the new land and explore its resources, and still they are connected to the motherland and importing and exporting all of those resources back to the motherland. And I think this is the second phase that we will be starting by the Artemis program in 2024 or maybe 2025. It is the Artemis program that will start our second phase. Most of my work is the third phase. The third phase is the permanent kind of settlement, the permanent kind of habitation. And you know, there are many words and notions in the space domain: habitation system, outposts, colonies, maybe you can name it, but it's all about the human presence. I'm trying, and we are all trying to keep our human presence in the new land. So that is a wall mural that I have designed in 2018 during a competition in Paris in France, starting from 1969, which is the phase 1, and 2022, which is the phase 2 or the start of phase 2. And maybe at 2030, it will be the time to start our own phase 3, and who knows, we might also experience and witness phase 4, the born of the first lunar child with a new nationality from moon and not from Earth. Back to our research. Also, another interesting research that I have found is the architectural program and the architectural need for building an outpost or building a new habitation system. And that was the driving force, alongside with a paper that I have studied of Mr. Mark Cohen, the NASA chief architect, who had conducted a very accurate and precise and detailed architecture program. So gathering all of those together, it had resulted in the architectural divisions, 8 different sectors. Each sector will be responsible for something, and also there are 2 safe houses and an airlock. And inside there will be a clean zone. And let me elaborate a little bit about the clean zone. There is something that might be a little bit harsh on Moon, that there is no atmosphere, there is no oxygen, there is no any kind of air dynamics or wind dynamics. And that might sound to be something harsh condition, but it might be a privilege. We have another problem. One of the, the lunar surface or the Moon is one of the most dangerous and hazardous extreme environment that can face humanity. Everything on Moon can kill you, starting from the micrometeors that is showering the lunar surface continuously, the cosmic rays, the gamma cosmic rays, which is very dangerous and just can make cause carcinogenic diseases, solar flares that might fry any kind of living organisms just in a matter of minutes, everything, the low pressure, the low gravity, which causes our loss in bone mass and muscle mass and failure maybe in the cardiovascular system. So we have many problems, but I would like to replace the word problem by challenges. Challenges is a problem that could be overcome by science, but problem is just a problem. So one of the problems that we don't have a wind might be a privilege. The lunar dust is so fine, and the lunar dust is so fine and so hazardous to our health. It might also cause a lung disease, carcinogenic diseases. It might stick on our clothes. So by making a very clean zone inside, maybe it could be vacuumed as well, that means that it will stay clean. So no dust could be just moving from outside the colony to the inside of the colony because there is no any air or any wind. So by making a clean zone that people might just visit as a park and stretch their legs and maybe exercise as well, that also would eliminate the problem of the claustrophobic effect inside the narrow spaces of the habitat or the 3D printed habitat. The powering system, I'll be talking later on, having also the food and the life support system will be discussed later. So let's move to the colony powering. The powering solution, I always believe in diversification of the powering system. You cannot rely just on one power system that might fail or something wrong goes. So that might really end the life in the colony just in a matter of minutes or maybe seconds. So I have 3 different sources of colony powering. The first one would be the solar satellites, and the solar satellites is an existing technology deploying in the cislunar space or maybe in the low moon orbit. Some solar satellites that could harness the solar panels and start beaming it at low microwaves to the lunar colony. But the main source power will be the nuclear reactor, a mobile, small-sized nuclear reactor, like the one that is used on the submarines or maybe the icebreakers, and later NASA is now developing a kind of its own nuclear small reactors, like the kilowatt power project and among many others. One of the most interesting generating energy solutions is the piezoelectric flooring. So people can just walk or maybe just start jogging or exercising or even dancing and having fun. And by the movement of the human presence on this floor, it starts also by conducting and generating energy. This is also another existing technology that is sold in Europe, and you can just pave your park even if you would like with this kind of floor, which can generate energy by the movement of people above it. Moving now to the form generation and the driving forces that shaped the form. Using the parametric design in creating the undulating surface, a lesson that is learned from the ant colonies to start sectoring and dissecting the inner spaces. So you can cover it with a ventilation system and artificial heating systems. So it's not just one unified space, it is multi and sub-connected spaces, and even the construction is divided into 8 different phases, and the colony can start functioning by the first phase. But by increasing and developing all of the phases and connecting the start with the end, that will be the end of the construction phase. Also, bearing in mind the geometric design of the colony that was inspired from the octagram circular formation. Another learned lesson from our ancient civilization, something that you can find in common between all kind of ancient civilization, and this is not a coincidence, from Chinese to Old Egyptian to Greek or Roman or even the Maya in the South American continent. You can find that all of these civilizations had just followed the principles of the sacred geometry. One of the most important principles and well-known and widely spread principles is the golden section. So this is not a coincidence, and this is not just we're done for fun. There are hidden values there that we have also to take it into consideration when we are designing our new city on Moon. Turning to the life support system, one of the most important pieces of the life support system, by the way, is about generating oxygen and water and thermal temperature and pressure and food and everything that can support the life and the human presence. So now we are talking about the food production. This part or this units were divided. We need 4 main categories of planting: the vegetation for the nutrition, the medical planting for making our basic medicine, and the oxygen bomb. Oxygen bomb is important for creating oxygen using natural-based solutions that could be monitored by a computer. You know, the NASA engineers, while in 2017 they were not really big fans of natural-based solutions, they are fans of the engineered and the machine solutions. They say that nature could not be predicted. You cannot anticipate the production of the trees, but using the machines and computers, everything is precisely calculated. But I do believe that the nature also is important, and it could be trimmed and it could be organized and arranged using computer or even an artificial intelligence AI. But also nature is important for our psychology, for our mental well-being. So having oxygen bomb, this is the 3rd category, and the 4th category is the biofuel and gadgets like cotton or bamboo, things that could be used in the new colony according to need. Moving now to the construction method, there is a very important notion called the ISRU. It's the 3rd class of space architecture. NASA had just divided or classified space architecture into 3 categories according to a paper written by Mr. Chris Kennedy, one of the NASA engineers, 30 years of experience in NASA. He has published a very important paper classifying the space architecture classes. The first one is called the pre-integrated, which is building everything on Earth, including the systems, and just moving what we have built from Earth, transporting it to space. The second phase is the hybrid class, or prefabricated, which is building part of the pieces on Earth and completing the construction on the lunar surface or the Martian surface. And the third one, which is the most important and most interesting, is called the ISRU, which is an abbreviation of in situ resource utilization. And the first time I have known about the in situ resource utilization, it was in 2014 or 2013, something near that year. And it was very important for me because the ISRU, it is something that is also learned from nature. You see this nice guy here on the right, that is merely the concept of the SIRU. It is using the in situ resource utilization and making something like the 3D printing even to start building its own small oasis. So that is exactly what NASA had called. And you know something also that is much important, it is also an ancient human practice. If you go to the North Pole, you can find people building there from ice in houses called igloo. If you are visiting the Middle East, you can find the desert houses, all built in sand and mud. If you go to the North American continent, in Canada, in North Europe, North Russia even, you can find that the wood, timber wood, is the most abundant used material. So whenever any place that you could like to visit, if you go to the mountains, you will find people using their stones to build their own habitation system. So it is something also original that we have learned from nature and passed through generations to the modern day. And in 2015, NASA declared that this is the most feasible if you would like to build on any celestial body, including Mars or Moon, or even any Sirius moon, or any different celestial body. But today we have also new possibilities found in 3D printing. 3D printing had enabled us to make and build the most sophisticated and complicated forms that could not be built using the human hand. But you know, water-based 3D printing could not be applied on Moon. The water will be one of the most precious commodity that we cannot waste in construction on Moon. So scientists had developed different methods, replacing the water 3D printing by the laser sintering, which is a very high energy beam of laser that is fusing all of the particles together. But applying that, there is a very important component that should be present in this regolith, which is the silica or glass or any kind of glass. And luckily on Moon there's the obsidian. Obsidian is the black glass, so it could be used using the melting or the sintering to fuse all of the layers together. And another developed also technique from the laser sintering is called the laser melting, and another developed technique is called the solar sintering, replacing the laser with the solar beams. But our problem, our current challenge on Moon, that the lunar day takes like 14 days, Earth days, and the lunar night also takes 14 continuous dark night. So maybe a hybrid solution between the laser melting and the solar melting will be the solution. And moving now again to nature, learning and very important another lesson, which is the minimal surface. The minimal surface, it is the surface that locally minimizes its area. So minimizing the surface area means saving your resources, saving your energy. And how could the minimal surface be applied in architecture? The answer will be in the gyroid cube. The gyroid cube is a very important another piece, and luckily another paper and scientific paper that's published by the MIT Media Lab in 2017 about 3D printing the gyroid cube, and they have found that it is 6 times stronger than a solid cube. The solid cube, if you apply pressure and loads on the solid cube, there might be an internal cracks that lead to the failure of the solid cube. But the gyroid cube is very resilient. It contains thermal pockets, which could be also used in helping the thermal fluctuations and resisting the high degrees of temperature. So returning to my desktop again and using the gyroid to start generating the gyroid cubes and start building the first wall using the gyroid cube. So the gyroid cube will be ideal, and also developing the robotic arm and studying the path of the arm, that will be preserving a lot of the energy consumed in the laser sintering and the resources of the regolith that would be used in building the wall. So there are solutions also for that. And I think we have discussed the colony powering. This is an application in the, and last thing that I have discussed also was the clean zone inside, which is a very important hygienically and psychologically. It's a biodigital morphogenesis approach to support all life forms. The project was awarded first time in 2018 in Jacques Rougerie Foundation, Institut de France. Later on in Ukraine, it was awarded again in an international competition and is converted into a VR experience in 2021. And last thing was in Vienna, United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs. It was also selected and it made its finals to as a scientific poster, and it is published on their websites. And in 2019, luckily, it was also exhibited in NASA Johnson Space Center. And that is the lunar oasis that I have just presented. It was presented as a video and a moving animation. And there is another piece that will elaborate the trees that you have shown also was another independent and different project. There's 2 projects exhibited in NASA Johnson Space Center. And the project didn't end. I don't have an end time for this project. It's a work in progress. It's a continuously developing project. It started in 2018 and now in 2022 it didn't finish yet. So also in 2019 I start thinking about developing another version of the lunar oasis into the Martian oasis. The main fundamental difference between the lunar phased approach and the Martian phased approach, the lunar phased approach, we need 3 different phases: survivability, to build our own life support system first, and sustainability, to ensure that it will stay, and then the operational phase, which is associated with the human presence. Otherwise, on the Martian phase approach, we have only 2 approaches: the autonomous construction phase that will be mainly conducted by robotics and 3D printing robotics. And after the end of the construction phase, it will be the start of the operational phase associated with our human presence. So based on the new parameters, I started building the Martian Oasis, and it was presented in 2019 to Kuala Lumpur International Architectural Festival, and it made also its way to the finals. It is won the third prize in the international competition. So it is a developed alternative of the lunar oasis, but now you can find there's a long fins associated with each tree to move using the piezoelectric wind, because there is now wind on Mars. Moon didn't have any kind of wind or aerodynamics, but on Mars there is wind. Also, you can find the main gates, which is associated with the cardinal direction, the Martian north and south and east and west, to make it easier for the future missions for navigation system. Also, you can find that there's the surface deployment of 2 double line of solar arrays, also that was not associated in the last lunar colony due to its housing inside a lunar cave, but now this is a surface Martian colony. Just as a quick comparison between the lunar oasis and the Martian oasis on the right and the lunar oasis on the left, they both carries most of the architectural values and the design considerations, but the variation is due to the changeability in the environmental parameters of the two celestial bodies. So replacing the ant colonies by the termites colonies. The termites colonies is not a subterranean kind of architecture like the ant. It is a superstructure. It is a skyscraper that is using the same principle of the ISRU, or in situ resource utilization, but it shares the same principles of having a sustainable habitation, one of the most sophisticated and complicated engineering systems created and solved by nature and inspired by the ants, and developing the section now using the same techniques learned. Now you can find that these are superstructures, and there are 4 phases to enter the colony. The first phase, which is the very long airlock associated with the air shower, to make sure that all kind of passengers will be totally clean. And then you can find the labs and the working labs and the farming galleys and the food production unit, and then the operational, including the communication system and computer monitors and scientific labs. And the last one is the living and sleeping quarters that we have to pass through another airlock to make sure that this most of the time will be spent in the living quarters. And you can find that it is a vertical solution. It could be divided into 2 stories or maybe 3 stories. And you can find that each structure will be a longitudinal structure that's connected with the airlocks between sector and another. But now also, due to its existing above Earth, you can find that there are also molten glasses that is built to make some kind of windows. It's another important engineering challenge that were solved due to the recommendations also from NASA in 2018. I have also participated in another NASA Centennial Challenges, and their manual was so precise. They indicated that it is very important for the human presence to experience the daylight. So the daylight is important for our circadian rhythm, which is important for the balance of our mental being and mental health. So the sol is the Martian day, which is almost like the Earth day. You have the solar roll, the movement of the sun. So it is important also to start lighting the interior spaces using daylight solution, which also will be ideal for the photosynthesis problem that was missing on the moon. The moon, the lunar oasis was housed inside a cave, so there's a deprivation, complete deprivation from the sunlight. But even if we have built on the lunar surface, due to there's no atmosphere, so that means that the plant on the lunar surface could be fried easily from the cosmic rays, from the solar flares. So it was very important and obligatory to build inside a lunar cave. But on the Martian surface, things are a little bit better. We have atmosphere which resists some of the radiation, but at the same time, the sun daylight could help in saving the energy and start helping the plant in a natural photosynthesis process. The construction method will be a little bit different. we are now using a different regolith, the Martian regolith, and the most appropriate one is called the sulfur concrete or the Martian sulfur concrete. And it's also, we still cannot waste water in the construction. Water will also be a very important commodity that and precious that we could not waste it. So we'll be using the lava casting procedure. Another variation of the laser sintering, but using the Martian sulfur surface. It will be built in 4 phases. The first phase is selecting the site and conducting all survey analysis, and then start by deploying the 4 Martian their cardinal directions and deploying the solar array to start powering all kind of future robotics that will be deployed on the surface. The third phase will be boring the subsurface and start covering it just to prevent the Martian dust from entering them. And the last phase will be the 3D printing of the ISRU and deploying all of the trees and plants and that will be the end of the construction phase and the start of the operational phase. Once we have reached the 4th phase, it will be ready for the human presence to complete what robotics had started. And that is just a very quick lightscape study of the Martian night during the Martian colony. Another piece of engineering that I would like also to highlight is the Tree of Life. Tree of Life, it has won another independent competition in Mars City Design in Los Angeles 2017, and my award was having a workshop in 2017 in Los Angeles, supervised by a NASA engineer, which was a very precious, it might be the most important and precious award. It's not about money, it's about science and knowledge. So just to shed light about the Tree of Life, one of the main challenges on the Martian surface that some months that might rise to up to 6 months, you can find that there is a complete dust storm that will be covering the solar rays. It will be covering the sun totally. So this kind of wind is so harsh that even the geographical features of the Martian surface are covered and blurry, and you cannot really find it. Just to imagine the kind of storms, this is an imaginary picture that is depicted by some specialists just to visualize how these storms could cover. But these storms are so light, so the main problem that depriving the solar rays, which means that also our plant and might face a problem in the natural photosynthesis that we assumed that it would be ideal. So all of the colony could be suffering from high deprivation of solar rays, and in addition to the accumulation of the fine Martian dust on its surface, but also, as we have learned from our history, that each problem carries inside it the solution. So yes, there are very harsh wind storms, but also wind had learned us that it's moving objects. The dynamicity of the wind might also inspire us. So again, learning from nature, the movement of the wind had just led to another solution. So I start prototyping and thinking about developing the first prototype about using the wind in the piezoelectric vibration and the oscillation that might lead to powering energy. So yes, the wind, the Martian wind could really deprive the solar arrays and the solar energy, but at the same time, the dynamic movement of the wind could also help us in generating energy. So that was the first prototype of the Tree of Life. That was in 2016, and it reached the finalist solutions, and studying how it could be deployed and how could be it housed inside a rocket. The first dimension that I started working on in 2016 with the Saturn V rockets, and later on I have replaced it with the Falcon 9, and lately I'm working on the dimensions of the Heavy Falcon developed by SpaceX. But also learning again from nature, I found a very important book. It's called The Hidden Life of Trees. First time for me to know that trees are also a psychological creatures. They feel the pain, they feel the joy, they have feelings just like human beings and all of the animal kingdom. They even communicate through their roots, and the trees also can share the resources and the nutritional resources and the food between other. And the priority of each tree is to pass its own food to its children first, and then its neighbors, and then its friends. So there is a complete community here in trees. So being inspired from this book also, I have decided to make a network of trees and not just independent solutions. So they now can share the oxygen, the resources, and all kind of information. But that led to a static solution. So each tree, once it is located on a site, it could not be moved. But after the workshop in Los Angeles and developing this project, I have learned so many lessons and start developing the second generation of the Tree of Life, which had won the first award, first prize. So now these trees also could be deployed on the Martian surface. It is a small capsule with a pneumatic structure, inflatable pneumatic structure, having a very long fins, and you can find like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different fins that could be moved according to the wind on the Martian surface, and they are lightweight MSA, memory-shaped alloys, another kind of alloys developed by NASA from a metal called the nitinol. So the nitinol has the resiliency. Even if it is deformed, it has the memory to return its original shape as it has been. So this is a very important resilient solution for the Martian surface, and it should be very light because the Martian wind is also very light. And now it is a mobile solution. So each tree could find its ideal place, a place to gain the solar energy and the appropriate thermal temperature, but they are all still connected using a low microwave to share data. So each AI solution or each movable AI robotic tree can now share the ideal environmental parameters and pass it to the other trees, so they can all share data, and it is very important to be data linked. I start also prototyping the geometrical shape, which is pointed a little bit and so vertical, so it can remove all of the dust that could be accumulated, or I might replace the word dust to be more precise with the regolith, the Martian regolith. So all of the Martian regolith will be just dusted off the surface, and these contour lines will be the LED wires that could be lit, and the light that would be generated from this black wires would provide the tree with enough light to conduct its photosynthesis. So once there are wind, that will be moving the fins will be generating energy. The energy will be powering the light wires, which will be used in the photosynthesis for the tree. So it's also a closed cycle. That was the site that was supposed to build our first prototype in Mojave Desert in Los Angeles during also the workshop. And on the right part here, that is the trophy that I have won, luckily. Later on the same year, in Wired magazine contacted me, and they decided to publish and write about the project in the same issue, carrying the face of Stephen Hawking, the first scientist who called upon leaving Earth and start expanding in space. In 2021, also Forward Futures from United Kingdom, from Great Britain, contacted me, and they decided to dedicate a complete virtual exhibition, just so people and the new generation, the school students, could really read about the project. And that was the third part of my design manifesto, passing our traditional knowledge system to the future generations. So it was very important for me to make this exhibition, to let the new students, the school students, they will be the future astronauts. They will be the future of humanity that might really construct and start living inside those spaces. So are designing for the future. And last news, just a couple of days ago, in 3rd of May, luckily, I was selected by Promo Moon Initiative, was I hope that I'm pronouncing it right, design office from Ukraine Space Company, to develop the lunar oasis. So now I will be having a backup from space experts, and they start by making an evaluation report to know what are the strengths of this project and what are the also drop downs that had to be studied furthermore. It's a non-stop, as I have mentioned earlier, it's a non-stop research. So building another generation of the Mars Oasis, but now I am building a biodome. It was also according to the UAE plans. The United Arab Emirates had the plans of their own 2117 Mars settlement. Nearly 100 years from now, they are planning to build their own settlement. So also now having more and better understanding and in-depth view about natural life support system or natural based life support system. So that would be the first biosphere that could be built, and it is about building multi-phases of habitation. The first phase will be constructed during the aerogel and having the flora and fauna kind of wildlife, and then the regolith or the 3D printed ISRU habitation for the human beings. So we have 1, 2, 3 layers of protection for them, and understanding the various aspects of the biodome. So the biophilic design is important to support our mental well-being. The circadian rhythm, which is the daylight that will be providing also psychological support. A radiation shield using the aerogel, one of the most light materials known to us according to science. Also the visual connection with the environment, creating a balanced micro ecosystem with an internal pressurized environment so it could resist most of the challenges that we are facing. Also trying to find new solutions that might be better. And aside from the lunar lava casting, now there is a solidification through the crust pouring, which might be also crucial in making our own artificial landscape inside the Martian surface. So the concept now was generating a funicular forms that is pulled by gravity and then start solidifying these pores and start boring inside the solidified structure to start and anthropizing this structure to start building an inside habitation and outside wildlife or micro forest. Also, the architecture program was conducting during some of the NASA researches that you can find on spacearchitect.org, by the way. These are architectural facades, just to understand the scale of the structure according to the Heavy Falcon. The sections, even the main geometry was inspired from the radiation fields on the Martian surface. You cannot really think about space without also having a way of connecting all of those habitats. If you cannot just, it's not about making separated or isolated kind of colonies. Those colonies should be connected. So as we have learned from history in 1869, the railroads were one of the most important pieces in the Industrial Revolution to transport the resources and the raw materials and the products for creating new markets. Our new kind of railroad system will be the lunar space elevators, or the concept of the space elevators. And believe me, this is not science fiction. Space elevators is a very old, discussed piece of engineering. And we have promises from multi companies around the world, from Japan to Emirates, that they are planning to build their own space elevator. But you know something? One of the most challenging environments to build the space elevators is Earth. Earth is the most difficult place to build a space elevator. But on Moon and on Mars, it is much more easier. And the key reason here is gravity. Gravity of Earth is the hardest gravity. You cannot really build something like that easily on Earth due to the high gravity on Earth. But the gravity of Moon is 16% only of the gravity of Earth, so it's much more feasible. And the gravity of Mars is only 38% of the gravity of Earth, so it might be also a feasible solution. So having a lunar space elevator will be the catalyst to start importing and exporting all of the resources from Moon to Earth. And also it will be a railroad system. So each height will be a station to connect according to, of course, a very sophisticated orbital calculations. So each station will be the station to start shooting your own missions to another celestial body, to Mars or Earth. And the last one, it will be a space telescope to help in understanding better the life surrounding the solar system. And the equatorial base station will be a subterranean station that will be this is not only an external transportation system, it will be also connecting the lunar surface as an internal transportation system. So that might help and lead to the growth of the human presence on the lunar surface. Building various colonies could be now much more easier. If you'd like to move from colony D to colony B, you just have to take the elevator to the point A and then return back to point D or C or B. So starting from point A, you have all options to move around the Moon. And this project Luckily, was also awarded in 2020 in Paris, and I'm conducting now another research and converting it into another scientific paper. Returning again to the concept of the anthropization, now the subterranean equatorial base, it was very important to import our own culture and our own place from Mother Earth to the new environment. It is about creating a new environment that people just do not count minutes to live, but to count and appreciate every moment of their stay there and create their own memories and joyful memories. So all elements of nature, the four main elements according to the Oriental philosophy, the water, the air, the tree, and the light, which will be artificial, of course, because this is housed inside another lunar lava cave, but it is another biomorphic solution. So now three different kind of biodigital strategies: the biophilic strategy, the biomorphism strategy, and the biomimicry strategies were conducted also inside this new environment. And last year in 2021, November 9th exactly, I gave permission to this aspirative author, and my work will be published in a book published by Routledge, Taylor and Francis Group, and hopefully this summer I will have the first copy, edited by Mitra Kanani, and she is dedicating a chapter about space architecture, and I granted her the permission. That was a journey summarizing my own philosophy that we have to develop and learn space technology that we will need it someday on Earth. If we possess the technology to terraform Mars, then we can face existential risks on Earth. That is a very depressing picture of Earth, the deserted Earth, but luckily we have all technology that could really prevent this dystopian future, and instead of having a dystopian scenario, we can have our own utopian scenario. One of the evidences of what I'm saying is this NASA spin-off technologies that you can find it easily on Google or on the website even of NASA. All of those technologies and much more, and believe me, there are more technologies than just indicated on this slide. Of most of the space technologies originally developed and originated for space use, but now we are using it and on Earth, and it led to our prosperity, starting from the microwave in your kitchen, the LED lights in your house. Most of our technology, you can trustfully say that 45% of all of the technologies that you have today in your daily use, the anti-scratch screens on your mobile or your eyeglasses, even your mobile using the satellites, all of those are originally developed for space, but now used for Earth. And in the simplest form, I'm an architect, so I cannot really think about space architecture without and turning back on Earth, our Mother Earth. So the same science used and developed and learned from my experiences in the space architecture, I also start developing another Earth solutions. So all of those houses on Earth are using the same principles. All of those are, by the way, internationally and locally awarded competition and prizes. It had gained at least one prize, and it's presented in the MidCop conferences. It's about having a house that it is a zero energy house and can produce its own food, and it can produce its own water. So it is an off-grid designed for an extreme condition, but it could be used on Earth. So now you can be in a decentralized economic system. You do not really need to buy everything. You have your own clean water, you have your own clean food, you have your own energy, and you have your own cooling systems and temperature resistance. So that is the future house, the house that I believe that will be carrying the three Ps: the post singularity, the post carbon, and the post permaculture, having your own planting system. That was the end of the scientific phase. My human journey until June 2021. Thank God I have been awarded 40 times, and that is just part of my journey, and I'm still I call myself a student. I'm still learning, I'm still developing and hoping for more. And for the exhibition maps, all of these orange dots are the places that I have spread my experiments and trying to pass this knowledge to others, including the public lectures that I am conducting today. and that is part of my journey. You can find on this picture, some of those pictures, I'm a little bit younger and some I'm a little bit older. It's a journey of life that never ends, and I hope to complete the journey. Those are parts of the platforms that adopted my work and start presenting my work: Discovery Channel, Forbes Magazine, L'Architecture d'aujourd'hui en France, Arch Daily, NASA Johnson Space Center, L'Arc International, Bibliotheca Alexandrina, Design Boom, among many others, and also teaching and mentoring others. These green dots are the workshops maps, and I'm asked just a couple of months ago that next year another green dot will be in India, so hopefully I might meet some of you in the next year. These are parts of spreading my experiments and trying to call upon the new approach, having an Earth architecture that carries the same values of the space technology, and moving around the Earth and delivering all kind of talks and trying to spread that. And that was during 2017 in SpaceX, Virgin Orbit, among many others. And to close the cycle, also the scientific research was important. So thus our Q1 journal on the right is the solar energy, and a conference in Hong Kong also about building new kind of sustainable solutions for extreme environments, but could serve us on Earth. I would like to thank you all for your presence today. I'd like to end my presentation today by 3 quotes that I do believe they complete the cycle. The first quote says, "The future belongs to those who dare to dream." So if you are fearing or scared of your dreams, you cannot really do anything significant. So you have to dare to dream. The second quote by Eleanor Roosevelt, "The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams." You have to stick to your dreams. Do not quit dreaming and your dream all aside, but it must exceed dreams. So Malcolm X completed the cycle by saying that the future belongs to those who prepare for it today. So dare to dream, believe in your dream, and prepare for it today. The dream should come into reality. I would like to thank you all for your presence today. Those are my links on the social media. You are welcome to connect for any reason, and even for no reason, just to say hi. You are always welcome. I'd like to thank you and thank the organizers of this event for this opportunity that we could communicate, that proved that we could communicate and connect even despite our geographical indifferences and different time zones. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for this fantastic presentation you have given. It was very knowledgeable, and it is definitely a landmark in the pioneering of colonization of space.
Thank you for your kind words. Yeah, I would like to maintain long-term relationships, so you're welcome anytime to just email me, inquire for anything. Yeah, I welcome anyone and everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. So can we proceed for the questions the audience has?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Okay, everyone, can you please share your questions in the chat box or raise your hand, and we'll pick the questions then. Thank you.
So for the questions that I can find on the chat, where and when you are coming to India, hopefully it will be next May. So just 1 year from now, as I've prepared for it and as asked to. So hopefully, yeah, I'll just, if you kindly follow my updates on the Facebook page, you can find all kind of new news. I regularly post it on my page.
We're sorry for the inconvenience. Actually, Garima's laptop just got hanged, so there's a technical issue. I'll be asking the questions, so can you answer those? There are some questions in our chat. So can I ask?
Yeah, sure. Lunar space elevator concept is interesting. Have you done any orbital calculations, altitudes for different space tug infrastructure paths? Yeah, according to Earth, it will be ideal to build in the geosynchronous orbital. This is also not my assumptions. This is science, but according to the lunar surface, which is much more feasible according to my readings, I think the Lagrange points of the cislunar space would be ideal for that. There is an international association called the International Space Elevator that you can follow, and they are regularly posting articles, and you can get familiar much more with it. I've kept like 1 year studying the concept of the space elevators just to have the basic understanding. My first presentation about space elevators was in 2020, 2 years ago, and I'm still learning. So, and yeah, I contacted also the founder of this association. And according to our technology, the main issue or the main problem is having the appropriate material for the tether. The tether on Earth, we cannot really build something like that unless we develop what is known as the carbon nanotubes. The carbon nanotubes that can resist all kind of loads and resistance. So the first time that I have presented that or start reading about in 2019, it was just a theoretical concept. And in 2020, as I believe, they started like producing it in labs like 1.5 centimeter. And in 2020, just 1 year later, they produced 70 centimeters. So it's rapidly developing technology. So in a few years, maybe in the next decade or something, we can really have 96. We need for the lunar space elevator 96,000 kilometers of the carbon nanotubes. But the good point here is we can replace the carbon nanotubes with the Kevlar on Moon. But on Earth, we need the carbon nanotubes. But having a carbon nanotubes would be a better and ultimate solution, of course. And as I mentioned earlier, all of the projects was reflecting existing technologies or near existing technologies, which means that it is in the experimental phase. So it is not just a theory, it is a working solution. Thank you, Mr. Boris, for your question. If we know that the lunar is dangerous, then why not we keep going for Mars only? Well, the moon, as space experts, is the stepping stone to Mars. We cannot really think about Mars without having moon, and moon is crucial for us. One of the most important resources for moon is the helium-3. The helium-3 is important fuel for the nuclear reactors, and among many, many others. And having also I'm not really a fan of militarizing space, but I'm totally sure, I'm perfectly sure that there are plans for having new ways, not just for World War III, for God forbids, but for eliminating any kind of hazards that can face the humanity, like asteroids, for example. So you can really use the moon as a launching pad or a launching phase for any existential risks or asteroids that might endanger us. So it is very important. You cannot really think about Mars without having into consideration Moon first. How laser sintering work? Laser sintering is about generating a high energy laser beam to fuse and melt the regolith particles together. So the main important is having it would be much more feasible to have something like the silica or at least the obsidian glass in the chemical structure of the particles, so you can so the laser beam can fuse and operate on. So yeah, the main experiment that were conducted on the artificial lunar regolith that proved that it is feasible, and even also about the Martian regolith. If you would like also to see the first prototypes that been built by a collaboration between NASA and Autodesk, you can find it in the AI Factory Mars Habitat. The Mars Habitat was the one who won the first prize in NASA in Centennial Challenge. It was a very precious prize, $2 million, by the way. But you can find the first prototypes being built using artificial Martian regolith. So there are experiments done. As I've mentioned earlier, I do not make the science. I use the science to make the architectural solution. And once I have reached something original, I can publish it again. Sir, do you believe that in 2050 or early 2030 we will see the space colonization? Well, you cannot really say when, but the one thing for sure that we have to keep moving forward. You know, the first project that I have worked on space was in 2009. It was an initiative by NASA, but organized by another third-party organization. It indicated that this project that we are designing in 2009 will be built in 2069. So it was just like 60 years ahead. But now we cannot really predict, because the main problem is not in the lack of our technology, but in the rapid advancement of the technology that is so much unanticipated. In 2003, I heard a very interesting quote by Bill Gates. Bill Gates in 2003 said that the technology that occurred in the last year is equal to the technology that occurred in the last 10 years. And the technology that has occurred in the last 10 years is equal to the technology that has occurred on the last 100 years of our human history. And what technology that we have developed in the last 100 years is equal to the technology that is developed in all of the human history. So by this rapid accelerating rhythm of technology, that means that, by the way, this quote, I heard it in 2003. Can you imagine, just like 19 or 18 years ago? With the rapid technology that we have today, you cannot really anticipate. But one thing for sure that I can really trustfully say that, yeah, we can do it. But one of the arguments that I've been working on in a scientific paper, would the space colonization be for humans or for robotics? Our main problem is our bodies are not designed or engineered for the space, but we can use robotic proxies that could really conduct all kind of hazardous operations and send us all of the resources and our needs back to Earth. That might be a solution until we find a safe haven for our existence in the outer environment. I am currently on its semester of architecture in Mexico, and I would like to focus on designing for space. What resources or tips could you give me to get into this type of designing? I would like to type you a very important website, spacearchitect.org. Please follow its publication section and its bibliography. Also, we have the Moon Village Association. Let me just they have also their own Moon Wikipedia. You can read. Just try to read as many as you can. If you'd like to have an official degree, you have the International Space University in Europe, and you have the Saskawa in Houston, Texas. They give master degree in space architecture and related space sciences. So good luck with that. Yeah, I would urge you to do your studies and conduct your studies. It's a very promising career. So if that concludes our presentation today, I would like to thank you again. What is your take on Dyson Sphere? Is it architecture achievable? Well, Dyson Sphere really, it's something between science fiction, according to our today's technology. No, the Dyson Sphere could be achieved someday, but let's, before talking about Dyson Sphere, talking about Kardashev scale of civilization. Our current, Kardashev is a Russian scientist that had made a measurement system to measure the degree of civilization, like with what we have in measurement on scales, for example, kilogram or pounds, or for the measurements like meters or inches. Also, there is a measurement to measure the degree of civilizations, and the original Kardashev scale were the 3 levels. The first level, if we have succeeded someday to harness and use all of the energy of our own planet. The scale 2 of Kardashev scale, if we have succeeded in using and harnessing all of the energy of our own local star, which is the sun in our case. And the third phase is using all what is available in our galaxy. And later, after the death of or passing of Kardashev, scientists had also made like level 4, 5, 6, and even 7. So our current status quo is we are 0.73 of Kardashev scale. If we have reached to the level 2 Kardashev scale, Dyson Sphere will be a scientific reality someday. But till we reach this kind of advancement, it's not feasible or possible with our today's technology. But yeah, maybe someday you can do it. So I'm currently 10th. If you could suggest if I can go for robotics or space architecture, well, the really interesting part, you can go for both, building robotics for space architecture. Why not using the robotics? If you can make space grade robotics, so you can make any kind of robotics, because this is one of the most sophisticated and complicated kind of robotics. So shoot for the stars, you might really hit the building or the minaret. So go for the robotics for space. Understanding everything about robotics. Robotics would be a very, very promising future career that I would also urge you to go for. Thank you, Mr. Tewari, for your kind words. I'm just a part of the cycle, not the whole cycle. I'm a student, still learning, but I'm trying to spread knowledge for others and trying to inspire others, and hopefully we can all work as a team for our prosperity of the humanity. Sir, can you say something about astrobiology and what role it played in space colonization? Well, you know, the main key point here that we have main 5 branches of the space technology: the satellites and communication, the astrobiology, the astronomy, the space architecture, and there is a 5th one that I don't remember right now, but it is one of the main branches of space sciences. So if you are interested in the astrobiology, yeah, go for it. If you'd like the or thinking, you can start by studying the space biotechnology or the biotechnology solutions. Start also by understanding how can we produce our food. The main problem is we do not really fear. Our main fear is not from having a kind of alien life form that we could be getting from space, but the problem is that we are exporting all kind of bacteria and microbial life forms from Earth, and we are contaminating space. Yeah, I know that space is a very sterilized environment. It kills mostly most of the bacteria, but only the target rates is the microbial life form that had survived even in the harsh environment of space. So you cannot never know. They might mutate, they might change, their genetic map might really be suitable for space. Someday they might get bigger, they might get dangerous. You never know. So astrobiology, yeah, it's a very interesting one if you are into biological sciences and you'd like to combine something of the biology with the space. Astrobiology would be solution, and is also a very promising career. As a beginner in space architecture research field, what steps should I do and which books to read at first? You have several options, Ms. Tasneem. First one is either by reading and educating and self-learning path, like the one I have did. And you can find there is a very interesting book by Miss Olga Banova, the Dean of Houston Space Architecture University. It's called Space Habitats. Try to find it, try to acquire or get it and read it. That will be a very good guide. You can find many videos. You know, the couple of years that we have passed through the coronavirus and the lockdown and quarantines had resulted in most of the scientists in space architecture has just made lectures and gatherings on the YouTube. So you will find a very resourceful YouTube, very resourceful in this field. So you can also, yeah, find a lot of lectures in addition to your readings. If you'd like to have a shorter path, try to make a master degree in International Space University or in Saskawa Houston University, just to have an official degree, and you can start from right there. Are you involved in any asteroid settlement? No, asteroid settlements is not my path. I'm only designing as an architect, space architect. But we have plans for the asteroid settlement. It's called the asteroid terranium. I have made one project in 2021 about asteroid terraniums, and we do believe that the most important part about asteroids is the resources that the asteroid carries. So that might be the main catch for the 5th industrial revolution entrepreneurs, the space trillionaires. We have now Earth billionaires, or the multinational companies, the big companies like Facebook, like Google, but it is expected in the next 25 years or maybe less, the new notions like space trillionaires, one who is capturing an asteroid of platinum or gold or even metal and trying to import it to Earth to use it maybe for Earth or maybe for the space colonies. You never know. But it is an interesting one. I am reading about asteroid settlement, but I don't have significant projects on asteroids. The main problem about asteroids is we do not have much data. The only thing that I can share with you that there are 3 types of asteroids: the M class, the S class, and the C class. The most dangerous is the M class, which is the metal core, and the least is the S class is the silica, which is like rock based, and the last one is the mud or just dirt, which is the least hazardous to us. About having a settlement, I would recommend either the silica or, of course, the metal core, where you can find the money and real economy inside it. Sir, are you a self-learner? Yes, I have been working for the last 23 years in reading and trying to understand, but you don't really have to take a long path. You can just make a shortcut by having an official degree. Like I've mentioned earlier, if you'd like to have master degree in either the International Space University or in the Houston, Texas. But yeah, now for me, yeah, I'm a self-learner. So if that concludes everything,
Unfortunately, due to time constraint, we're going to have to stop taking questions. But you can still share your unanswered or new questions on our community platform on Mighty Networks. Thank you,
Yeah,
everyone.
that might be a very good solution. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much, sir. On behalf of my whole team, I would like to thank Dr. Samir Sayary for delivering this insightful talk and showing some of his amazing architectural works. Sir, it was an honor for us to have you here. I hope you keep
The
giving
honor
us
is all
brilliant
mine.
solutions. Thank you so much, sir. Uh, we also hope you keep giving us brilliant solutions to our upcoming challenges. We are actually very optimistic about making human beings an interplanetary species. Thank you so much, sir, for
Thank you.
taking
Thank you.
our webinar. We hope to stay connected with you through all our social media handles and our community platform, Mighty Networks. Thank you,
Yeah, sure.
everyone. Thank you, sir. Thank
See you.
you, everyone, for attending this. Stay tuned with NSS Mumbai for more such amazing content. For further details, please check out our website, which we have shared in our chat. Thank you.
Have a nice day. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Have a nice day.
Bye bye.
Bye.